Alright, how we doing people? Welcome back. Today we're going to go over something that I think is extremely important and not a lot of people I've seen actually talk about. So, what I'm going to go over today is, why you're constantly losing trading Forex. So, currencies. So, EU, UJ, EJ, GU, all the currency pairs. Even though there's not that many. So, one of the main things that I see everywhere is that, people have this obsession with being a fucking Forex trader and being an FX trader. Everyone wants to be a Forex trader or a gold trader or a EU only trader or a UJ only trader, when in reality it's completely handicapping you when it comes to trading. This is EU for example, yeah. Since June 2025, we've been in this huge range, yeah, and basically we're coming up to June now, so nearly a year of just chop, basically. Yeah, so we've just had a year of complete chop, and bearing in mind, if you're trading the higher time frames, this price action, you would have either made small bits of money, break-evens, losses, maybe a few small wins, losses, a few small wins, break-evens, losses. So the return on a market like this is skewed not in your favour, okay? And this is really important for people to understand, because what they don't understand is your job as a trader is to follow the money and where the money is going, not to be defined as a certain type of trader. For example, FX, you're not there to be just an FX trader. Your job as a trader is to follow the money and see where the money's going, okay, and trade where the money is. For example, let's look at this. ZEC. Some crypto pair. Don't know what it does, don't care what it does. But money's coming in and we're expecting money to continue. Okay, I don't care what it is, I don't care what it does, I follow the money. Okay? I don't marry a pair, for example UJ, and only stick to one pair because I want to specifically be a UJ trader or a FX trader. We follow the money. And is the money in stocks? Money coming in. Is the money in QQQ? Yes, money's coming in. So we trade the markets that prove themselves and are in a clear bias, okay? We don't pick and stick to one pair because we want to be an FX trader, and people say, oh well, what about prop firms, we can make so much money in prop firms. The reality is most of the currency pairs, so we'll go to FX, let's just pick some of these, right? We had a little bit of a clear trend here, but the rest of the time it's just chopping. It's not one-sided. It is just, look, even now, look, if you draw it like this, it's just in a big range. Here, okay, yeah, this isn't too bad. Big range, because remember, this is the daily chart, so this was January till March, April, so 4 months. 4 months of wasted time when you could have potentially looked at another market, like a stock market, because there's so many stocks, or a crypto pair, or futures. Okay, this isn't too bad, but I still don't see it as really clean, to be honest with you. Like, this is okay. So, okay, you've got one nice pair that you can watch. The rest of them, chop. This isn't too bad. But, again, look where we are. Complete chop. The same as EU. So you are literally handicapping yourself as a trader by sticking to just Forex. Like, let's take an example, right? So you're building a house, okay? You're building a house, and in order to build a house, you need to dig foundations, okay? So this is your house, right? To dig the foundations of your house, which are here, are you going to use a shovel to dig them? I bet you guys love the annotations. Or you're going to use a digger. You're going to use a digger because it's quicker, more effective, and it'll be done better. Okay? You're not going to handicap yourself and use a shovel when you have the option to use a digger, because it doesn't make sense. But for some reason, everyone in the trading space seems to have this, identity of only being an FX trader, and that your strategy only works on FX, or, my strategy only works on gold, for example. It only works on gold because, we were in a market like this. That's probably the only reason your strategy was working. This strategy here that, you might have traded really well on gold during this time, but the reality is your strategy that you think only works on gold worked well here because of the bias that we were in and the trend that we were in, the bases that we were forming. Your strategy won't work in this kind of bias, or it might work, but it won't work as well because of the overall trend and bias. Okay? So what you need to differentiate is that you as a trader are here to identify these types of biases, these types of trends. Not, I'm just going to be a gold trader, or I'm just going to be a EU trader because, because of Forex. I have to be a Forex trader because, you've got FTMO and stuff, and you've got all these prop firms, because the reality is, if the majority of the markets are dog shit, you're not going to get the entries and actually make any money anyway. So you're better off having capital, building an account to trade stocks with, or crypto, or whatever, but using your own capital to trade markets that are in clear biases and clear trends. Okay, that is really, really important, to not identify yourself as a certain specific trader. You are not, a gold only trader who only trades gold because, my strategy only works on gold. It's a gold only strategy. Because that is not the case at all. The reason it worked was because of the story behind the market and the trend and bias that it was forming. Not because it only works on gold and at fucking 1 o'clock in the afternoon at a specific time. It only works because of the underlying trend and bias. So that's really, really important. I don't know why we see all over the internet people and traders being a specific trader. I am only a GU trader or a gold trader. You know, people will sell mentorships like join my course for my gold strategy, and it's like, okay, well, how well does your gold strategy work when the market is doing this? It doesn't work, okay? Because it doesn't matter what fucking strategy you have, in a market like this, you just get taken out. You don't make money. You might have small periods of small wins, but the majority of the time you will lose, okay? And that's not what the role of being a trader is about. The role of being a trader is following the money by viewing the data that you're given, because this is data, like we've said before, price, candles, it's all data, okay? And you need to identify if the bias that we're in is clear, and stop labeling yourself as a specific trader. Oh, I'm a prop firm trader because I only trade EU and GU, you know? And the reality is you will probably make, 3 to 4 times the amount of money that you would make if you were just trading individual markets. Okay? Because at different stages, markets go through different cycles. So, we'll go over one, for example. Let's go over Intel. Right, so this went through all of this absolute dog shit, choppy, chop, 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 and now we have entered a different phase because money's coming in, and we have identified what is happening and how the condition of the market is changing that suits a trend following system, okay? And we now know that this is in a bias that's worth watching. Whereas, this might be doing really well at this moment in time, but EU is in a shitty market, okay? But then, in a year's time, EU might be start doing something like this. Okay? And Intel might be back doing something like this. So I'm not going to identify myself as an Intel only trader because, my system worked here. It's not what's making me profitable. What's making me profitable is not the pair, it's not the ticker, it's the underlying story of what's going on, okay? So it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to be, what's trending in the news. It doesn't have to be an AI pair or a robotic pair. We simply just follow price in the cycle theory, okay? Is it showing clear strength and clear buying or clear selling? And that is all we have to do as a trader. We don't have to, overcomplicate it. We don't have to, only trade a certain pair because our strategy only works on a certain pair. Because the reality is it works on anything. It literally works on any and every pair as long as it's in a clear bias and trend. And I think that's really important because a lot of people handicap themselves and, I don't really understand why. Because there's so many markets, there's no reason to, stick to a couple because your strategy only works on one pair. It doesn't. You need to broaden your horizon. You have many more options, and there's no point, because there's so many markets, there's no point even considering a pair that looks a little bit choppy. What's the point? This is how you get stuck in the same cycle of, you get stuck with win, loss, loss, small win, loss, 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 and you get my point, okay? So the job of a trader and the role of a trader is to identify clear markets, not to be a currency bound or a Forex bound or a futures only trader. A trader is somebody that identifies clear demand, clear supply, and clear chop. It doesn't matter the market. The markets are completely irrelevant. You will have periods where some markets do really well and some markets do terrible. Okay? And don't stick to just, like I said, don't stick to just one pair. There's no need to. There's so many markets. Alright. Cheers for that. See you later.